Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Peoria Proud's Inquiry Teach-In webinar. I'm River Russell, my pronouns are he, him, and I'll be your host for the evening. This ongoing series serves as a way to bring knowledgeable professionals to a wide audience on a host of different subjects concerning the LGBTQ+ community and will be recorded for posterity. After the presentation, we'll open it up for Q&A. Tonight's inquiry is on transgender health navigation. By the end of this session, we hope that you have a better understanding of gender-affirming healthcare and feel empowered to embark on your medical gender journey. That's a mouthful. I'd like to start by providing some background on your presenter tonight and one of my dear friends. Kayshawn Healy identifies as transmasc and uses he/they pronouns. He was hired in April of 2025 as the Gender Diverse Healthcare Navigator for Central Illinois Friends and has since found that working for the community is the most fulfilling professional experience he never expected. When not attending outreach events, assisting in clinics, or endlessly researching community resources for the gender diverse community, Kayshawn enjoys spending time with his amazing partner, kids, and friends, as well as working out and drawing with sidewalk chalk at random parks. Having completed a degree in English literature, he's fascinated by all things linguistics and is learning American Sign Language. Thank you, Kayshawn, so much for being here tonight. That's all from me. I'm going to go ahead and hand the floor over to you. So without further ado, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much, River. I am so excited for this opportunity to come and present on health navigation with Central Illinois Friends. So this is a fairly new service to Central Illinois Friends that we felt was just in response to healthcare in the area that was just suffering from a growing sense of only treating the medical conditions and needing to have a safe space for gender diverse and LGBTQ people as a whole to come and receive holistic care. So care that really addresses all the parts of your healthcare aspects. So things like your mental health care and navigating what it means to go in and ask effective questions of your providers when you're conducting your appointments. So this presentation is going to touch on health navigation and a little bit more about what that is and what it entails and the services that we offer specifically at Central Illinois Friends. So these are the navigators at Central Illinois Friends. Our navigation team consists of 2 members. We will soon be getting a 3rd member to our navigation team who will act as a navigation lead and help guide us and distribute tasks and manage even more services at Friends. So the first navigator that we have is our general health navigator. His name is Brandon Richardson Smith. He uses any and all pronouns as long as they are respectful. And he assists people with accessing services outside of what Central Illinois Friends offers, things like housing options and things like that. And then, of course, myself, Kayshawn Healy. I serve as the Gender Diverse Healthcare Navigator. So I work specifically with clients that are trying to access gender affirming care through Friends and through other local resources and providers in the area. All right. You'll have to bear with me. I'm not good at technology, so here we go. A little bit of an overview. So today I want to explore with you guys what health navigation actually is, because this is actually defined a little bit differently depending who you're talking to. We are going to explore the services that we offer at Friends, the impact of health navigation services on health literacy, and we'll dive in a little bit more about what health literacy means for just community members. Why health navigation is especially beneficial for the LGBTQ plus community and trans community specifically, and then we'll go in for a Q&A. All right, so I've got this vision and values board up here for Central Illinois Friends, and the reason why I wanted to include this is so that you all can see that specifically one of the values of Central Illinois Friends is navigation. It is the N in Friends. And this is just designed to help people in the community who are engaging in healthcare services access complex healthcare systems and community resources that they wouldn't otherwise have, an easier time accessing, whether that's because they need to improve their health literacy or the systems are kind of stacked against them. They are underserved or underinsured or uninsured. So this was a huge part of the mission of Central Illinois Friends, was to be able to make this care accessible to folks and remove barriers. So navigation is a big part of that. So what is health navigation? Health navigation can fairly simply be defined as a service that's offered by healthcare organizations to create a point of contact that assists patients with breaking down barriers to accessing the care and resources that they need. Um, so these are basically point people, right, at a healthcare organization where you can come in and access a person instead of a system or a recorded message that helps you navigate all of these different aspects of care, because obviously people are very complex and we have complex healthcare systems to help take care of them, but the healthcare systems don't seem too concerned with making that care easy to navigate or accessible or understand. So we act as buffers, basically. So we help patients navigate complex healthcare systems, including things like primary care, specialty care, surgical and mental health care, and insurance access and form assistance. So, what is form assistance? You ever went to go fill out a health history and it just seems needlessly complicated, or they have an assistance form for financial assistance at that particular clinic, but it's 7 pages long and you don't understand all the things that they're asking you to provide for them. So, this is one of the services that we can provide as healthcare navigators. We also help patients learn more about accessing community resources. So, if you've ever been in an appointment and somebody asks you, what kind of resources would you like to access? And they don't elaborate on that question. It's our job to understand what is a resource, what sorts of resources are available locally, and what sorts of resources can we help you identify because we know that you qualify for them or that you may be eligible. We also improve health literacy, which is your understanding of healthcare, insurance, and related services through health education. So we have that capability to take the time out of our day to sit down with you and make it a part of your care to make sure that you are understanding all of the things that you need to understand to be able to get the care that you need and deserve. So, health navigation services at Central Illinois Friends. So, this is what we currently offer specifically at our clinics. Myself, as a gender diverse health navigator, I help patients access gender affirming hormone therapy, education, and treatment. So I meet with new patients to talk to them about our program and the services that we offer. I do family and community education. So if a gender diverse person is struggling with loved ones or friends or even like a boss, and they really want me to act as an advocate for them and to sit down and do some of those hard conversations, we can do those mediated or we can do it via providing resources for them to receive education on these things. We also do gender affirming transition resources and referrals. So, if a gender diverse person is having trouble accessing surgery, we can provide referrals to clinics that we know are affirming and inclusive and offering of the various different procedures that a person might choose to try to access as part of their medical transition. We also connect them with resources that are not necessarily medically related. Maybe you need assistance accessing like gender affirming clothing. So we can help provide resources or different people in the community or organizations in the community that can provide those services and those items that you're looking for. Our general health navigator, Brandon Richardson Smith, can provide healthcare education and resources, much like what I do, but this is for the general population or the LGBTQ population that we serve. Um, Things like housing assistance or coordinating counseling services outside of what we provide at Friends. He can also connect patients with insurance navigators so that they can get signed up for things like Medicaid, Medicare, or a marketplace plan. He also provides linkage to affirming local providers. So, as LGBTQ people or gender diverse people, a lot of the times the fear isn't about whether we are able to find providers in the area, it's whether or not we're going to be safe and affirmed when we walk into that environment. And we'll dive kind of deep into what affirming means rather than accepting or simply supportive. Because you may go into a clinic that will serve LGBTQ people, but are they actually affirming you in your identity? Are you seeing yourself or somebody like you represented in the materials that they're giving you or the education that they're providing? Or is the language really loaded? Or are the images that you're seeing very heteronormative? And we'll dive into that too a little bit later. Other navigation services that we offer are part of our original core mission, and that is navigation services for people living with HIV. This includes linkage to care for newly diagnosed patients, um, reintegration for people who have fallen out of care. This you might occasionally hear referred to as surveillance in the healthcare world. This is where we're trying to help people get reconnected with care after they've disengaged. Um, and then we also do transportation services to medical appointments for people living with HIV. So that is one of the ways that we try to break down a barrier, something that we would consider to be something that stands in the way of people accessing the care that they need and deserve. I was just thinking, isn't it? All right. So, why have health navigators? In a word, time. If you've ever been into a doctor's office, you'll notice that you hurry up and wait to have very little time with your providers and possibly even less time with your nurses. That these are appointments that once you do start seeing a medical professional, they flow super quick. So, a study that was performed by the Health Services Research Organization, they found that across a lot of primary care visits that were done with actually elderly patients, I believe it was. So you would think an elderly patient's going to need a little bit more time with their provider to go over their issues. The median time for an appointment was only 15.7 minutes, and it covered a median range of 6 topics. So 15 divided out by 6 is a really, really small number. We're talking less than 2 or 3 minutes a topic. They said that the most complex topics usually averaged about 5 minutes with the providers, while other topics ranged about 1 minute. Um, so you can imagine it's really hard to actually dive deep into your needs and what you require for your care when you've only got such a limited amount of time to do it. And unfortunately, the pressure is on the providers to operate in those limited time constraints. Lots of providers and clinics are actually gauged by how many people they're seeing in a day. And there are just basic standards that say, oh, you shouldn't be spending more than 15 minutes on this type of appointment, or 30 minutes total from the time you walk in and register to the time you're walking out and done with the provider in 30 minutes or 60 minutes for a new patient appointment. So by the time you get through registration and vitals and talking with the nurse and being groomed and finally seeing your provider, you've got a very limited amount of time to actually get the care that you need. So, navigators, we provide some of that additional time that can be spent. We help our patients make bridges to their care team, right? So, we provide trusted resources. We can answer questions. We can help listen to them as they're expressing their concerns. So, what this does in turn, by providing that additional time and that additional attention, we're building trust. And we are trying to create a space where our patients feel affirmed and they feel heard and seen and understood. We're trying to bring that compassion piece back into healthcare. And so, health navigators, we build bridges with our patients. We try to help underserved and minority patients who often enter healthcare with a lot of preloaded experiences. So let's face it, if you're walking in as a gender diverse person into an office that has, let's use kind of one of our more extreme examples, accessing OBGYN care as a gender diverse person is an extremely stressful experience. A person that is with a vagina still needs to access care to take care of that. But you're walking into these offices and all you see is these perfectly manicured nails sitting over those pregnant bellies. The pictures that hang up in the OB's office. And it's like, I'm just here for my gyne care. Like, why can't I come into an office and I can feel affirmed in being in here? And so it's a very scary feeling to go into a very gendered space. Um, and so as navigators, we can help them kind of make that jump over that initial fear and walk in and see a person that maybe represents something that looks a little bit like them, or know that when they come in, they're seeing an advertisement with gender neutral colors, with images of people who might appear to be non-binary, might appear to be non-traditional, so that we can sort of try to suss out those spaces for them and where they're going to be included, and not just included, but celebrated. Um, and so, Health Navigators, that last point, it talks about creating consistency for patients. So, if you come in, and I know that we've had this frustrating experience in several different environments where you're encountering different providers every time you're coming in, a different person at the front desk, a different nurse, a different CMA taking your vitals from one appointment to the next. For primary care, you may be walking in 6 months to a year apart. Navigators can help bridge some of that disorganization or that fear from, am I going to be okay trying to tell this person that my pronouns are he, him, when they look at me and they may still clock me as a she, her, or they may say, I don't care about pronouns. We want to make sure that you are not having those experiences, or that if you do have an experience like that, you have an advocate for you built right there into your healthcare setting. Even if we're referring you out to other partners, we want to make sure that you're coming back to us if that partner is not an affirming partner. So building bridges, you've heard me talk a lot about how health navigators exist to create these bridges for patients. So these are just some examples that I've tried to outline a little bit to help folks understand the different types of bridges that we can help establish. So first and foremost, between provider and patient. At Central Illinois Friends specifically, I know that we strive very hard to help our clients feel comfortable with all of the staff members that they interact with, right? But we are also realistic in understanding you're going to have a limited amount of time with that provider, and they're going to bring a lot of complicated information to the table. So we can exist to help interpret those instructions and care plans. We can connect patients with specialized care if our providers aren't able to give them all of the care that they require and they need to go out and seek other providers. We can facilitate access to providers via transportation or telehealth options. So we can seek out providers that we know that those things are aspects of their care that they offer. We can also facilitate, I'm so sorry. We can also follow up with providers on the care plans. So part of that interpretation is also making sure that that follow through is happening. If a provider said that we're going to honor you with, contacting a specialist referral within a week, we can be on that care plan and be making sure that, hey, it's been a week. Have we gotten to this? Have we made sure that this promise has been kept? And we can also facilitate access to health insurance and services offered by insurance providers. So you come in and maybe you have an insurance provider that says that they have a transportation program, but you're having a whole lot of trouble accessing it. We can actually facilitate a phone call where we sit in the room with you while you call your insurance provider and stay on the phone with you while we help you build those tools of how to talk to this insurance company and say, hey, this is part of my plan and I deserve to be able to access the service. Why has it been difficult? So those are all different ways that we can help build that provider-patient bridge. We also build bridges from patients to communities. We identify and connect with community resources. So like I had mentioned before, resources is a word we like to throw around a lot in healthcare. But it's hard to understand what is a resource and where do I find it? And is it right for me? Are they actually going to help me when I go to seek this out? If a provider just throws, well, just dial 211 here in Central Illinois. This is a great resource, but really difficult to use if you don't know how to navigate it because there's so many components to it. There's resources on that hotline for, utilities and for housing and for all of this other things. So they actually, hopefully you're going to get a staff member when you call 211 that's really good at navigating that. But sometimes it can be hard to access people that are going to be willing to work with you, or people that are going to understand where the affirming resources are at. And if we're not sure if there is an affirming resource available, how do we help bridge that interaction so that you don't feel so vulnerable when you're trying to contact them? We also exist to be able to vet resources. So when we talk about that, are they affirming? Are they a right fit for you? We're addressing relevance. We're addressing safety and inclusion. So are they a good fit for you if you are looking for a resource that can assist you, but it's got income guidelines and you're over the top of them? Well, we can kind of do some questions and answers and interviewing with you to understand, is this resource going to fit your needs or do we need to look elsewhere? We also identify community events and spaces that can support your health. So for example, one of the services that we offer at Friends is a gender diverse support group that meets every second and fourth Friday in the community center. However, we recognize ourselves that the time that it's offered, because that's when our counselor is available, doesn't necessarily work for everybody to be physically present there. So we can actually listen to our community members and they say, man, I would love to access this resource. It's counselor led. This would be a great group for me to engage with. Um, and so they want to engage, but they work or they live really far away and they don't have transportation. So we can respond. I'm so sorry. My kids are in the next room. So if you hear them, um, yeah, I apologize for that. But for the resources, so if you have that need to be able to access that resource and you're too far away, we can offer you a telehealth option, or we can offer in certain circumstances. Sometimes we've been able to bridge transportation issues for folks. They're very lively. I apologize. I do have 5 children and 4 of them are home tonight, so they're a little excited right now. They're all eating dinner. Um, we also build bridges between patients and people. And so outside of communities and community resources, we also offer bridges between the folks that mean a lot in your life or the folks that have a large impact in your life. So this could look like providing education and outreach to those community partners so that when you are accessing resources, the services that you're receiving are from people that are informed about how to provide inclusive care. Um, we also can offer education to loved ones and allies. So, a gender diverse person or an LGBTQ person who is coming out for the first time and is nervous and needs that extra support. They can reach out to us and we can do facilitated conversations or mediated conversations. Um, excuse me, just one moment. I'm going to hush my children. Hey, Robbie, you gotta calm me down while I'm on the presentation. Thank you. I have such animated children. I love them so much. They've got real strong opinions they feel they need to share with each other. At any rate, so we can provide that communication and that facilitated, mediated conversations with people who maybe don't understand where you're coming from. And that's a really vulnerable, scary conversation to have. So we can act as that neutral source or a person that can create that sort of safe and welcoming space and help open up those feelings for those people. We can also identify events and spaces for those loved ones and allies. So, for loved ones and allies that want to lean in and provide the most welcoming environment and the most support that they possibly can, but that can be difficult for them as well, because let's face it, it's learning about a whole new world that you may not have been exposed to before or may not have had to identify with before because it wasn't being addressed by somebody that was very close to you. So we can identify support groups and we can identify social groups and things like that, or educational materials that are out there. So we can connect to them with those resources to be able to navigate this new world that they're having to engage with for their loved one. So another part that we have talked about is health literacy. And what are we talking about with health literacy? Well, this is one of the primary tools for empowering patients. So I've put a little quip in here. It says, if knowledge is power, health navigators are electricians providing safe connections. So when we're talking about navigating these spaces, it can be really, really daunting to want to go into some of these environments cold and not knowing what to do and not knowing what to say or what questions can we ask or what questions will they be will they be willing to provide answers for. And so part of that is learning the language. Healthcare, just like any other environment, has a specific lingo, if you will. And so navigators can act as those educators for our patients. And we can say, hey, here is all of this new language that we're presenting you with, especially in the realm of gender diverse healthcare. Thank you for that. Somebody said my kids are not that loud, so I appreciate that. They're definitely loud for me. But so the lingo that we navigate, this has a lot of terms. It's got a lot of acronyms. It's got a lot of new information about what is it exactly that I'm doing. You know, we're going to talk to our patients in the gender diverse world about things like injection education if they're looking at doing injectable hormone therapy. And so we have a whole set of terminology that we have to use with that, you know, talking about drawing up and doing all of these different things, or having something called aseptic technique, which is what we teach our patients to help prevent them from acquiring any infections during their injection process. So a lot of that language is brand new for our patients, absolutely brand new. And so helping them kind of bridge that gap and understand those things is just of paramount importance for us. And we also help them understand what is covered or in network. So terms like that are related to insurance, and they're directly related to the impacts it's going to have on patients as far as cost is concerned. It's important to understand if you do have insurance or how much insurance you have. You may think that you have all of your healthcare needs taken care of through your insurance plan when really maybe they're only covering 40 or 30% of it. Maybe they're covering 50% or they're covering 100%. But those are things that we can help you access the information to understand, so that we can make sure that you're getting care where you need to get care from. We also navigate privacy concerns. So, one of the things that a lot of people express a lot of nervousness and just hesitation about is all of the questions that you have to fill out when you come into a doctor's office. I'm sure we've all been there. And for gender diverse people specifically, oh my gosh, looking at those demographic forms, let's say we haven't legally changed our name yet, and we're looking at, oh, there's only a slot on this page for my legal name. Do I really have to give that? Do I have the option of telling you that my name, my real name, is different from my legal name? It's my preferred name. And helping people understand that you have every right to communicate that with your providers, and that most healthcare systems have measures and tools in place to offer that to you and to provide places for those nurses and doctors and front desk people to be able to access that information quickly so that those accommodations can be made. Likewise, with very gendered information, I'm sure it's been a while since, female health forms are like, we would like your husband's name, but these changes had to happen gradually where we improved forms to say things like partner or spouse or are you married or single. When we're collecting sexual health histories in sexual healthcare clinics, which is one of our primary services at Central Illinois Friends, we talk about all of the different types of experiences you may have had, and we do not shame patients based off of their sexual histories. We just want to provide the most comprehensive, effective care that we possibly can. So those are just some ways that we try to help our patients navigate all of that language and the privacy concerns, and helping them understand what information do you really need to give your providers and what information is maybe an overreach, and that you have the right to decline to give certain information. And then also limiting that access to your health information. So a navigator can act as a person that says, hey, maybe it's not totally necessary for your doctor to be asking you questions about your mental health care, because they really don't need to know that if they're just, let's say, providing you your hormone therapy regimen. So we can help you understand how to draw boundaries with your providers. And so that leads us to that last portion of health literacy. And that is the importance of empowering our patients with self advocacy tools. So, helping you understand that you do have rights in healthcare and you can prepare for your appointments and you can ask questions of your provider. And not only can you ask questions, you can challenge your providers about why they are giving you the information they are. And most providers do honestly have your best interests at heart and they want to provide you with the absolute best care that they can. But sometimes it's hard for us as patients to understand, why are you making those recommendations? So we empower our patients and we encourage them to ask the questions to give you the reasons why. Why is this a good fit for me? And help you explore how to get the most out of your healthcare by having those tough conversations with your doctors from time to time. So some other reasons why health navigation is important for LGBTQ plus people. We really do exist to help break down barriers to care. And one of the biggest barriers is the stigma associated with being a gender or sexual minority. So cisgender heteronormativity, oh goodness, pardon my English today. This is the assumption that individuals make that all people are cisgender, that they identify with the gender that they were assigned at birth, and that they are also heterosexual, meaning that they're only attracted to the opposite sex. And then what heteronormativity, the normativity part, what that refers to is that that state of experience is superior to all other gender identities and sexual orientations. So it's just this assumption that everybody is and should be cisgender and heterosexual. And that is encouraged and promoted by mainstream social media or mainstream media. Um, right now, it's being encouraged by all the messaging from our government. So they are doing a lot of things to take radical measures to take out transgender identities from official pages. They have removed funding for research. And so they're working really hard to make us feel like we're not welcome in this world when we know that we are very much welcome and very much celebrated and affirmed and beautiful people. So we are trying to work very hard in our health navigation and in our clinic to ensure that our patients understand that this is a stigma that we are trying to actively break down. Um, the social norms that are taught through cisgender heteronormativity are internalized by healthcare professionals and patients alike. They're internalized by students, by teachers, by just about everybody because of this constant messaging. I mean, I'm 40, so I try to think about any time at any point in my history or my education where I saw a book that had a family represented in it that had two dads or two moms. It just didn't happen. And so that's why when we talk about representation, which is another value of the Friends organization, it is so important to bring that forward, to talk to healthcare providers about you need to have representation, whether it's through your advertising, whether it's through your artwork that's hung in your clinic, whether it's through your forms. You need to have representation for these folks. You need to make sure that the options are available for them to tell you, to describe to you who they are and who they love and what kind of a life they have so that you know how to treat them as a whole person. We also vet providers and resources. So we know that entering these unknown environments, this is a scary experience, like we've mentioned a few times. Members of the LGBTQ community don't know what you're going to get when you walk into these environments. And so, navigators, we take the time to vet these providers and the resources. We want to make sure that when we're giving you a referral to a provider, to a counselor, to a community assistance program, that you know you're going to be talking to somebody that's going to affirm your identity. And if they don't, we want to hear about it. And we also exist to create a continuity of care. So this kind of goes back to that consistency piece. We want to make sure that if you are having consistent affirming care here, if you need to move, if you need to relocate, if you need to access a provider that's far away because that specific service isn't in existence here locally, we make sure that we can find those resources elsewhere. We're absolutely good at sleuthing out things. Part of our whole job is just to sit and research stuff. Anytime I have a client contact me and say, "Hey, I really hate to say this, but I've got to relocate, or I finished going to college locally. I'm going to be moving to XYZ city. I don't know where to find care there." And I'll be like, "Give me 5, man." Usually, actually, a couple hours, but you got to take that time, and we take that time with our clients. You need to go that extra step and make sure that they know that they're going to be cared for and they're going to have at least 1 or 2 or 3 resources to reach out to make sure that that care stays consistent from one provider to the next, whether it's due to relocation or accessing a service that's not necessarily a local one. um, and finally, for advocacy, we facilitate contact with insurance companies, providers, resources, families, loved ones, all of those things to try and help to access services and resources when patients are still building their confidence and their health literacy. So let's face it, every time we enter into a new environment or every time we access a new service, we're building a new skill set. And we believe that every single patient that comes through our doors is capable of acquiring the tools that they need to then have this kind of successful care elsewhere. So we want to imbue them with that, and we want them to leave our offices feeling like not only are they getting really good comprehensive care with us, but they're going to be able to take those tools to another provider or maybe completely outside the healthcare setting, and they're going to go into their education setting or their workplace and say, "Hey, I have rights and I've got a voice and an identity, and it deserves to be honored, and it deserves to be respected." So at Central Illinois Friends, we have this phrase that our executive director uses on a constant basis, and we've pretty much all learned it by heart and have adopted it into our practices. And this is the concept of failing forward. And I will read this one right off the screen. It is acknowledging that failure is an opportunity for learning and growth and actively seeking to do better. So it doesn't matter what kind of knowledge you're walking into our community center with. We want to make sure that as long as you have a respectful attitude and an open mind, that we are going to be able to have those awkward conversations with you, that you can pull aside any staff member and say, I don't understand anything about transgender people or that experience, and I want to learn. Or my son just came out to me as gay, and I've never had a gay family member or a gay friend before, and I need to understand how to support this person, but I have no idea what I'm doing. And you might say the wrong thing, and you might make a faux pas, or you might make a blunder and fall on your face flat. We don't know, but we are here to help you learn and grow and move forward from that experience. So at Central Illinois Friends, we believe in being radically inclusive. We opened Peoria's first LGBTQ plus community center to meet the needs of community members seeking to support LGBTQ plus people, as well as providing that safe space for our LGBTQ plus community. Our health navigation is an integral part of providing healthcare that seeks to meet the human needs of our community. And I outline these as feeling heard, seen, understood, and appreciated, and to be valued, respected, and treated with kindness, to be empowered through education and advocacy, and to have a safe place to exist authentically without judgment. And these are the values that we embrace at Friends. And every team member is brought on, not because necessarily we have the letters that make us look like a healthcare provider. You would never expect that somebody with an English lit degree and no other letters after their name is going to be conducting patient appointments. But I do go in and conduct those interviews, especially for our new patients. And so many of my coworkers do the same because we're peers and we're part of this community and we understand what it feels like to be misunderstood. And so it can be so affirming and so calming, honestly, to walk into an environment and be able to engage with somebody that absolutely can relate to what you're saying. Um, and we are also very open to the idea that not every patient is going to be comfortable with every staff member. So we try to make sure that we have the various representation among our staff so that if somebody is uncomfortable and they're sitting in that place of fear and they're sitting in that place of hesitation and they don't want to share openly, that they at least feel confident in, am I the right fit for you, or would you like me to find somebody that could help you feel a little bit more comfortable in this environment? And we try to do that with our folks that come in just trying to understand our community a little better, feeling like an outsider walking into that community center. And I can't imagine what that does feel like, coming into a queer friendly space as a non-queer person and wanting to understand and learn more about that, when maybe the messaging around us right now is that's not the acceptable thing to do, but we need it now more than ever. We absolutely need our allies to come in and engage with us. It's just loading and spinning at me. So that's everything. That's all I've got. I am open for questions. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, that tuned in, that contributed. I really want to thank Peoria Proud for having me on here. And without further ado, if there's any questions that folks want to ask, I'm an open book.
Thank you so much, Cation, for all of that valuable information. And I love hearing your kids in the background, just the reality of not only navigating trans health, but also a family of 5 kids and all of your dogs and cats and husband and
Yeah,
all of the chaos. I haven't seen any questions roll through yet, but I have a few of my own. So my first one, that's so much information that you presented.
That is a lot.
And you've been there since April, so that's not even 6 months.
Yeah.
What have you done to prepare for all of this? What kind of training have you done?
I might be a little rough around the edges compared to some other presenters, but a lot of our job is FAFO. So we do, I do have a little bit of a background working in a healthcare setting. So I did work for 5 years for Positive Health Solutions, which is an organization here in town that provides LGBTQ primary care as well as gender affirming care there as well. They do HIV and STI testing, and they also provide treatment services for people living with HIV. So they do a whole slew of stuff. But I worked for 5 years on their case management side, where I interacted with a lot of patients that were accessing their case management program and services. And I also did some work with their continuous quality improvement programs, sitting in on those meetings and helping to um, make sure that patient information on the database side, so kind of on the back end, was getting moved from one system to another. So healthcare systems are not new to me. I definitely did have a solid knowledge base when it came to, you know, reading and seeing, making sure that like lab results were existing in a system, and learning how to do like front end registration, and insurance information. So a lot of those pieces, as well as like HIPAA expectations, are not new to me. So that's definitely part of what kept me interested in working with these populations, because the patient demographics and populations over at Positive Health Solutions are very, very similar to what we see at Friends. So um, and then honestly, just lived experience. So working with gender diverse folks as a peer in the gender diverse community just really lent me towards being passionate about my role. And as soon as I got in and I was like, wow, I know absolutely nothing about feminizing bottom surgery, I just started doing a whole lot of reading. So accessing things like the Fenway Institute and University of California, San Francisco has really good learning materials about trans care. So yeah, mostly a lot of reading.
I did see a comment come through asking if it's muted for anyone. Todd texted me saying that he lost connection. I know he's traveling right now.
Oh shoot! You can still hear
It
me, okay?
looks like I can still hear you, and it looks like we're still live.
Good.
Um,
Maybe for for the person that it's muted, I actually thought it was muted for me too, and my speakers were turned off on my computer. So that could be that could potentially be something. I mean,
I
I'm not
see
gonna do that.
subtitles coming through on Facebook on my phone, so I think we're good to keep going.
All right, awesome.
Um, you had touched a little bit on being very trauma informed and having trauma informed approaches to your patients.
Mhm.
What strategies have you found effective in building trust with clients who have experienced trauma in medical systems?
So a lot of what we lean on is our strength as being a diverse team. So really just we've me personally, in my experiences with patients that are coming in with a lot of previous trauma and they want to share those stories, is just the power of listening. Truly, a lot of patients are just looking for a safe space to be able to offload all of that and to share those experiences with us. And the strength with Friends is in our team building and our communication, where we go, hey, we've got a person here who has been through a whole heck of a lot of stuff. And what kinds of resources here at Friends can we provide to them when they're ready for it, to help them move past a lot of those things? So connecting people and really listening to them when they're saying, I've got a lot of trauma and I haven't felt safe before. Well, at Friends, we can offer affirming counselors that come from places where they may be part of the LGBTQ community. We have two counselors with us right now who are in the gender diverse community. Um, Now, our mental health counseling programs are specifically for people who are uninsured or underinsured. So, if people do have insurance, we usually recommend safe spaces that we know accept insurance outside of Friends, simply because our counseling program is so limited. But that helps us build those bridges and identify those counselors where they're at. So, truly, we never try to step in and provide a service that we're not qualified to do, but we are always qualified to listen to our patients. And so when they experience those things to us, we make sure that we validate that we're hearing what they're saying and that all of their experiences are valid, and that we will always ask our patients, what can I do to help you feel more comfortable? And we found that that is a very open question that just kind of busts open that door and breaks it wide, and just that's that invitation in to be like, look, you're safe here and it's okay for you to share whatever you're comfortable sharing, and then we will work on how do we connect you when you're ready to engage in those services that can help you start unpacking some of that stuff.
I love that. Oh, you're making me tear up. I love hearing you talk about how much like how much you care. You create a very good psychologically safe environment. So I love that you're doing this work,
Like,
and that the community has you. What are the most common barriers trans people face when accessing healthcare?
oh my goodness. Um, I really feel that it's that stigma piece. And there's so much wrapped up in that, right? So when gender diverse people are trying to access care, the fact that we go into so many spaces that are so incredibly gendered and so incredibly reliant on what's your sex. I want to know your sex because we're providing care based off of your sex. And it's like, no, you're providing care based off of the parts that need the care. And if I'm walking into a primary care provider's office and I have a gynecologist already, I don't need you to ask me about my ovaries. I need you to ask me about my pronouns and my name and whether or not I've got a mental health counselor or whether or not I'm needing, you know, a flu vaccine, which really has little to nothing to do with whatever parts I'm walking around with. And so, is it necessary for your doctors to know your sex because of certain parts of the system that are still so heavily reliant on gender and biological bits? Yes, to a certain extent. But it is also not okay for providers to fixate on that. Um, and I think another big barrier to care that a lot of patients have voiced to us is going in for something wholly unrelated to their transition or their medical transition care and trying to address a problem with a provider, like let's say for instance a person who has a vagina and all of those bits, those reproductive parts, going in and saying I'm suffering from abdominal pain, and the provider instantaneously saying, well, a side effect of being on testosterone is abdominal pain. Okay, that's very unhelpful of you. Um, or just other related things, coming in and saying, I'm having, you know, muscle soreness, and then going immediately to, well, it's got to be related to your estrogen or it's got to be related to your testosterone. So there is a habit of providers who are not well read or well trained in providing gender affirming care to just immediately jump to that and say, hey, well, it must be because you're trans. It couldn't possibly be because you're human, and you're experiencing a human issue, which I'm supposed to be trained to help you with. Um, so I do feel like there is definitely a reliance of providers to be like, well, I'm going to wash my hands of this one because I'm not actually comfortable providing care to the specific patient. So I definitely think that's a huge, huge barrier. And then obviously just the buildup of that bank of negative experiences. If you go to like access some form of care and you've tried to access that care in the past. For me, my big salt box topic is gyne care. And you go in and you're shut down again and again and again, and you feel like you haven't been listened to or taken seriously for one reason or another. Your likelihood to continue trying to seek that care is going to shrink and get lower and lower and lower until you're trying to figure out how to make do without actually accessing the care that you need. And so I feel like for a lot of trans folks, they come in and they say, I was ready to just give up. I was ready to just give up on everything. I was going to say to heck with transitioning. I don't know where to get this care. Everybody, all this messaging from, the political environment, the government is saying that, we don't even deserve to exist or have our care covered. And so people come in and they just have this very, very defeated attitude. And so it just warms my heart to know that they can walk into our environment and you're going to have an option right from the get-go. When you talk to our front desk staff, they're going to ask you what your pronouns are. They're going to ask you if you have a preferred name or not. They're going to hand you a form and you're going to be able to look at a question that says, describe your gender identity. It doesn't even say select from the following gender identities in some cases. We will sit in an interview and we'll say, can you describe your transition goals to me? And that question has nothing to do with what are you expecting to get from HRT. The first thing I want to know is what is your goal walking into this appointment? And does it really fit hormone therapy? Because maybe it doesn't. I've had patients come in and describe goals that sound like, wow, surgery might be really great for you, but you're not talking about anything that hormones do. So maybe hormones aren't the right fit. Um, talking to non-binary and gender fluid and gender queer folks. Their needs are entirely different from the needs of people who identify more along that binary ends of the spectrum. They may come in and they're like, I really feel like I want to do hormones because like everything else that I'm doing, I just don't feel affirmed enough, but I'm really, really scared of like everything happening super fast, or I really don't know about this particular effect of it. And I'll sit back and I'll say, have you heard of microdosing? And open up that conversation about there are options out there available to you to help experience this in a more gradual, slower pace. And then you can decide at any point, maybe this is right for me and maybe it's not. And you can either stop or you can increase the dose. So those are all different types of conversations that we can open up to people to make them realize that we know it feels defeating right now, but there are options available to you. It's just creating that space to open those conversations. So.
Kind of piggybacking off of that, what changes would you like to see in healthcare systems regarding trans and non-binary patients?
So many. Do you have 2 hours?
Uh, 9 minutes. No, I'm joking. We can
All right.
go as long as you want.
Let's just pick like 1 or 2. I would like to see a lot of reform happening at the system level. So a lot of where we kind of run into roadblocks sometimes is, or not sometimes, a lot of the time is when it comes to reporting. And this is a issue that I don't understand as well as I would like. This is definitely something that my supervisors and the providers deal with a lot more because of grant reporting. Just because we want to be able to provide the care that we do in the way that we provide it and to all the people that we provide it to. We don't rely on federal funds at Central Illinois Friends. We rely on state funds and we rely on grants and donations so that we can be able to provide this care. But even with the state grants, you have reporting parameters that you have to go by, and they only allow you certain boxes that you can check. And I think a lot of what people don't realize is that we really, really, really want to provide you with this care. But sometimes if you don't check the boxes that they're asking us to have you check, we can't even include you in the reporting half the time. And so it's really, that part has been very eye-opening for me. Like, I didn't even realize that was a struggle that healthcare providers are up against, but they really are, because the state, like anything else, like, you know, your Scantron tests in education, they want to be able to measure what you're delivering and how you're delivering it and who you're delivering it to. And sometimes their boxes just don't fit our identities because we're the rainbow community, man. We come in every shade and color and size, and they have a hard time accommodating that. And it's very hard to work off of like qualitative data. We really have to have our stuff be quantitative. So we can't tell stories. We have to report numbers. And that can be really, really crippling at times. I'm not crippling, but it definitely is a barrier to providing the kind of care we want to provide. The other thing that I think I would like to see change is just out in the greater community, having representation and having just the opportunity for your patients to describe better to you who they are shouldn't be as hard as people make it. I should be able to walk into any OB office and maybe see a picture of a non-binary person who's pregnant, or a trans mask person who's receiving gyne care, or heaven forbid, a seahorse dad. If you guys don't know what that is, it's beautiful. It is an affectionate term that trans mask individuals use for when they become pregnant after they've already started transition. So I think we would just benefit from being able to walk into a space and not be like, holy crap, I don't belong here. Do I really have to talk to the front desk? Like, I hate having that experience. And I know that LGBTQ people who are different sexual orientations face the same kind of stuff, where we're like, no, this really is, you know, before marriage equality, this is my partner, but they're really my wife or my husband. And no, I want them to be able to make all of the decisions if I'm not able to make them. I know that you guys have done some amazing presentations on power of attorney in healthcare and things like that. And I think that's absolutely incredible. We are seeing a little bit of forward movement in some other areas, though. I saw that they just opened up that new legal hotline in Illinois for LGBTQ folks. It's called Illinois Pride Connect. They're so exciting. My only beef with it is we are not included in their directory of healthcare providers, so I'm going to be contacting some folks, or I'm going to
Uh,
muscle to do
I'm
it.
on their bi-monthly calls,
Nice.
so I can get you connected with those people if you want to get added to their directory.
There we go. It's not
We'll
looking
touch
so
base for this.
good. But yeah, those are definitely some changes I would like to see made. More inclusive forms, more inclusive reporting. I know that's hard to do, but it's not impossible.
Yeah. Well, I do want to kind of wrap things up on more of a positive note. You do so much for the community, you do so much for your family. How do you take care of yourself while doing all of this intensive work?
Oh my goodness. So I'm just gonna go ahead and give my coach a shout out. A little over, gosh, it's almost 2 years now. Holy crap! Sorry, Aiden. But I found a coach who is also an FTM trans individual, and I joined his program. Um, I originally did this to improve my fitness, but then I discovered that he is more of a life coach and taught me so many tools to just take care of myself. And it started with mindset. And he taught me the importance of setting goals and creating a vision. And without those tools, I really don't think I would be where I'm at today, because I had written on the first of the year, I'd written my 1 year vision, and it included doing outreach opportunities. It included volunteering with Central Illinois Friends and creating support spaces for the gender diverse community. And these were all goals that I set while I was still working a third shift job, processing platelets overnight. And I got burnt out. And I was like, I can't do third shift anymore. I've been doing it for 4 years. I was only sleeping 3, 4 hours a night. And so I decided to make a career shift, and I didn't care where I went. I just wanted out. Um, but I knew the director of Central Illinois Friends, and I reached out to him and I said, hey, I need a reference, because I'd worked with him before. And he came back and said, how about a job? So he really brought me to where I'm at today. And I continue to work with that program and work with a coach, because I think without mentors and without people to help guide us and help us step outside of ourselves and kind of look at what's going on in our lives, it can be really difficult to remember that self care is actually a selfless act. And that when we take care of ourselves, I do a lot of meditation in the morning, I do workouts, I'm taking better care of my nutrition, but all with the help of that fitness group. And it is a whole community of trans, mask, and non binary individuals who are mask presenting that lift each other up and support each other. And I think finding community is so important when it comes to self care, which sounds kind of funny, because self care you wouldn't think is a community thing, but it really does take a village. So those are definitely some steps that I've taken, and I continue to set goals to try to grow. And it helps remind me that when I show up for myself, I show up better for the community. So that's been a huge shift in my life, because I never used to practice self care. I always thought it was selfish, and then yeah, things just kind of changed after that. So
I love that. Well, with that, it's 8 o'clock. I didn't see any questions come in through from the community, so thank you for answering all of mine. Um, it was a pleasure talking to you as always. And if there's anything else, is there any way that the community can get in touch with you? Look you
yep.
up on the Central Illinois Friends website. Oh, look at that.
So I just
Okay,
flipped to the next slide. So
perfect way to end. That's right
there's
there. I'll go ahead and stop the stream. We'll call it a night. Okay.
awesome.
Thank you. Perfect.
Thank